Hello, and welcome to the Martin & Associates ACH or EFT software. This demonstration will take place in the 2014 version of the software, and we will be demonstrating it using the Accounts Receivable module. The Sales Order module is also available for ACH in 2013 and 2014, and in previous versions of the Sage software, it is available for Accounts Payable and Payroll. The first thing you will want to do once you have your software installed is set up the appropriate roles. And once that is finished, you want to go into Accounts Receivable, Setup, and then Payment Type Maintenance. You will need to set up a payment type of ACH. The description can be whatever you would like it to be, and then you will need to pick an appropriate asset account. For the sake of this demonstration, we're just going to use the first GL account on hand, which is cash on hand. Once the ACH payment type has been entered, you may close out of Accounts Receivable and go down to ACH Complete, Setup, ACH Complete Setup Options. On the Main tab, there is some default company information that you will need to enter before you can begin to process ACHs. On the AR module and SO module tabs, there are options specific to those modules. One option that we would like to review is the Run ACH process during AR sales journal. When checked, ACH will automatically run when you update and post your invoices. If unchecked, you may run the Open Invoice Sweep to process ACH at the time of your choosing. For the sake of this demonstration, we will be running the Open Invoice Sweep, so we are going to uncheck that option. Once the basic setup options have been completed, you will then want to go into the ACH Bank Maintenance. Like any standard screen in Sage, you have your magnifying glass, which shows you all of the bank codes that you have stored inside of Sage. And you have your flashlight, which will show you all of the bank codes that you have for this specific screen, the ACH Bank Master File. Now we already have a bank code set up, and you can see on the left we have all of our bank information filled out, and on the right is the File Options section, which allows you to customize your ACH file to meet your bank's needs. And at the bottom left, we have the Bank button for ease of access, which takes you directly to bank code maintenance for the bank that you are currently on in case you need to check any information or update any information for that bank. Once the bank information has been entered, you can close the Setup folder, enter the Main folder, and enter Customer Maintenance. Again, we have the magnifying glass, which will show you all of the customers that are stored inside of Customer Maintenance, and we have the flashlight, which will show you all of the customers that have been entered inside of the ACH Customer Maintenance menu. We have our customer's routing number, account number, and the ACH enabled checkbox is currently checked. When checked, it will allow this customer to be swept by the ACH software, and if you uncheck it, it will allow that customer to temporarily not be swept by the software while still maintaining their information inside of your system. The prenote is something that is required by the bank before you can begin to electronically transfer funds. It is their way of verifying that the information that you have entered into your system for that customer is correct. It is important to note that our software will only sweep customers who have the prenote status as approved. However, if your bank does require you to send in prenotes, it is good practice to start their prenote status as not sent. When our software runs the prenote selection, it will automatically update their status to sent, and then when you run the prenote approval, it will automatically update their status to approved. The final step to setting up a customer inside of the ACH Customer Maintenance screen is to go to the Sage Customer Maintenance screen and set their default payment type as ACH. Note that this step is not required for the Sales Order module, as you can set the payment type of an individual invoice. Using the Customer button on our Customer Maintenance screen will automatically take you to the Sage Customer Maintenance screen for the specific customer that you are on. And on the Additional tab, we want to change their default payment type to equal ACH, and now that customer is completely set up for ACH processing. Now that our customer has been set up inside of ACH Customer Maintenance, we are now ready to process the prenotes for that customer. Under the ACH Complete module, Prenotes folder, there is the Prenote selection. You're allowed to select prenote status for none, not sent, sent, approved, or all. Since our customer was set to not sent, as we have not yet sent their information to the bank, we're going to select this drop-down and say accept. It then tells us that a batch number has been created. Note that the batch number ends with PN, which stands for prenote. Now that the prenote batch has been created, we are ready to generate a bank file to send to the bank and to update the batch so that we can clear it out of ACH. The first step is to go to Generate Bank File, pick our batch using the lookup. You can see that the batch is labeled with the year, the month, the day, and a 4-digit serial number, and since this is the first one of today, it's 0000. The PN at the end stands for pre-note, AR stands for accounts receivable, and SO stands for sales order. We also know that this can be our batch because the bank file generated is denoted with an N, which stands for no. We're going to select our bank. We're going to type in a comment of demo. Pick our effective entry date. Just type in a confirmation number. It doesn't really matter since we're not actually sending this to the bank. And we're going to select print, say proceed. Now that print checkbox, if you leave it unchecked, you'll just process the bank file. But if you check it, you'll see this ACH sweep transaction report. It gives you a bunch of information contained within the batch, such as customer number, their routing number, their account number. It's a good way for you to check to see what all information is being created in the text file that is going to be sent to the bank. Now we'll close this, and it's going to tell us that a text file has been created with the same naming convention: year, month, day, with a serial number. Now by default, these text files are created inside of the mass90 folder, mass_company code, and then AC company code, and you can see our text file right here. You can change that location inside of the ACH complete setup ACH options. Now that our text file has been created, the final step for the pre-note is to update the batch so that we can remove it from our lookups and it is no longer in the system. To do this, go into the ACH main batch update, select our batch using the lookup, and then check this checkbox in the bottom left corner. What this will do is it'll delete the batch out of the system, and it says no cash receipt. Now this doesn't really apply to the pre-note, but by default, any AR or SO transactions that you have will post to the cash receipts automatically when you run through this process. By checking this checkbox, it'll simply delete them out of the system to remove them from the lookup. So we're going to say proceed, and now we're done. Our pre-note text file has been created, the batch has been updated and moved out of the system, and the last two steps are to send the text file to the bank and to approve the pre-note once the bank has approved it. Once the pre-note file has been created and the pre-note batch has been updated, you then need to upload the text file to your bank's website. Different banks will have different methods of doing this, so if you have questions, you will need to contact your bank representative. Now that we have finished the pre-note process for our customer, if we go look at our customer in ACH main customer maintenance, we will see that their pre-note status has been automatically updated by the software from not sent to sent. This is for good bookkeeping and to let us know that the customer's information has been sent to the bank, but we are still waiting on approval. Once the approval has come from the bank, we will go into ACH Complete, Pre-Notes, Pre-Note Approval, and we will say Proceed. What this will do is anyone who is currently sitting at Sent for their pre-note status will automatically have their status switched to Approved, and the approval date will be based on the date that we have in the field on the screen here. Now that we have run the pre-note approval, our customer's pre-note status should automatically be sent to Approved, and we will be ready to process ACH for this customer. We are now ready to run through the complete accounts receivable ACH process. We will start by creating an accounts receivable invoice under AR main invoice data entry. We'll make a new batch, a new invoice. We'll pick our customer, 01ABF. We're going to sell him one widget for $55.25. We're just going to skip invoice printing and run the sales journal. Now if you remember, we had the checkbox in the ACH Complete options that said run ACH during sales journal. If that were checked, we would see a box that would come up that would say, would you like to process ACH? But since we did not have the option checked, it's just going to go ahead and proceed like normal Sage would and ask us if we'd like to update the accounts receivable sales journal. Now that we have invoices to process, we are going to go into the Open Invoice Sweep so that we can create our batch and our text file to send to the bank. We're going to minimize accounts receivable, go down to the ACH Complete main, and we're going to run the Open Invoice Sweep. This screen allows you to select invoices that you have in your system based on 4 criteria: the invoice due date, the customer number, the invoice number, and the terms code. By default, the All checkbox is checked for all 4 criteria, but if you'd like to select a specific due date or a specific customer number or a range, you can uncheck the All checkbox, click the lookup, and it will show you all of the eligible criteria. You say Proceed, and then you will see a report with all the invoices that meet your criteria, the customer, the date, and the amount of those invoices. You say yes to create the batch. It'll let you know that a batch number has been created with the same naming convention as the pre-note, only it has an AR at the end for accounts receivable. We say OK, and now we're going to move on to generate the bank file. Inside of Generate Bank File, we're going to see the same user interface that we saw earlier with the prenote. We select our batch, our bank code, type in a batch comment, and we'll just say demo. Type in an effective entry date, give it a confirmation number, doesn't really matter again because we're not sending this file to the bank. And here again is our print checkbox. If we leave it unchecked, we will create the batch. If we check it, we will create the batch, but we'll also see a report. Now we can compare this report to our Open Invoice Sweep report that we saw earlier. We have 3 invoices. They're the same 3 invoices, correct customer number. So we close the report. It tells us that our text file has been created. And again, the default location for the text file is under the mass90 mass_company code AC company code. And now inside of this folder we have our 2 text documents. We have our text document from earlier with the prenote information, and we have our text file that we just created with all of the AR invoice information. And this one obviously came first, so it has the date plus the serial number 001, and then the file that we just created came second, so it has a serial number of 2. Once the ACH file has been uploaded to your bank's website, you'll want to come into ACH Complete, Main, Batch Update, and we're going to update the batch and post it to cash receipts. So we select our batch, our bank, the date of the deposit, and we say Proceed. Now if we wanted to just remove the batch from ACH and update it without creating a corresponding cash receipt, we would check the Delete Batch Only, No Cash Receipt checkbox. However, we'd like to save ourselves some time and some manual entry by not having to enter the invoices and the cash receipts at a later date. So we're going to go ahead and say Proceed without that checkbox checked. And it lets us know that an ACH batch has been created inside of cash receipts entry with a deposit number of A0006. And now that we've run the batch update, the ACH process is complete. And if we close the ACH Complete folder, we go up to Accounts Receivable under Main, and we go to Cash Receipts Entry, we can look and see that our batch number of ACH exists. The total amount matches the total amount of the invoices that was swept. Say Accept, we pick our deposit, A0006, we say OK. And if we scroll through, and go to the Lines tab, we can see here's our first invoice for our ABF customer, here's our second, and here's our third. And that completes our demonstration of Martin & Associates ACH software. If you have questions or interest in the product, please contact us via phone or email using the information in the video description below. Thanks for watching.